Most people today only know the name because they heard it online, or in a documentary, or from someone trying to scare their friends. But for Daniel Price, the story didn't begin with curiosity. It began with a coincidence, so unlikely he still wonders if something guided him toward it, something hungry. Daniel was a historical archivist, quiet, soft-spoken, someone who preferred old documents to live conversations. His job was to sort, categorize, and store forgotten materials from police departments across the Midwest. Most of it was harmless. Outdated reports, faded photographs, inventory lists. Boring, tedious work. But one day, a mislabeled box showed up. No return address, no reference number, just a single word written across the top in thick black marker. Recovered. Inside the box were items from a condemned apartment building in Milwaukee, the same building where Jeffrey Dahmer once lived. Everything inside should have been destroyed decades ago, but for reasons no one explained, the box now rested on Daniel's desk. He should have handed it off, logged it, ignored it, but he didn't. Inside were mundane things. Photos of empty hallways, burned flooring, a rusted lock, a small chunk of concrete from what used to be the wall. It was unsettling, but harmless. Until he found the tape. A cassette. Old, dirty. Labeled simply 213. Kitchen. Daniel didn't want to play it, but the curiosity sat in his stomach like a stone. After hours, when everyone else had gone home, he pushed the cassette into an old player. At first it was just static. Then faint sounds, muffled scraping, a humming refrigerator, footsteps. And under it all, something else, something wet, slow, rhythmic, like chewing. Daniel slammed the stop button. His heart pounded. There was no way this was real. Dahmer didn't record things. At least, no one had ever found evidence of that. So what was this tape? He tried to convince himself it was a prank, a fake, a hoax someone sent as a sick joke. But when he rewound the tape to check again, something new happened. A voice whispered through the static. A low, breathy, almost giddy voice. He tasted like pennies. Daniel nearly threw up. He ripped the tape out and stuffed everything back into the box. He left it locked in his office and went home, determined to forget it. But that night, he couldn't sleep. At 2:13 a.m., a coincidence that didn't feel like one, Daniel woke to a soft scraping sound coming from inside his apartment kitchen. He lived alone, no pets, no roommate, nothing that should have been moving. He sat up, listening. The sound was steady, slow, metallic. A drawer opening, he crept out of bed and into the hallway. The apartment was dark, except for a faint glow coming from the kitchen. He could see the silhouette of the open drawer, one that had been closed when he went to bed. And then he heard it. The same sound from the tape. A wet, repetitive chewing. Daniel flicked on the lights, but nothing was there. The drawer was open. A knife was missing. That was worse than seeing something. The next day, Daniel forced himself back to work. He planned to return the box and tell his supervisor it must have been delivered by mistake. But when he unlocked his office, the box wasn't on his desk anymore. It was in his chair, opened. The cassette sat on top, as if placed there intentionally. Waiting, Daniel froze. He backed out of the room and called security. But by the time they arrived, the box was sealed again, neatly taped shut. Like no one had touched it at all. They reviewed hallway security footage. There was nothing. No one had entered his office. No one had touched the box. They told him he must have imagined it. Stress, overwork. Daniel knew what he saw. He knew what he heard. Something was following him. Over the next week, little things began happening. He'd find bite marks on food he never ate. Objects moved in the night. The refrigerator door would be open in the morning. Neighbors reported hearing chewing sounds through the vents, sounds they insisted were coming from his apartment. Daniel stopped sleeping. One night, exhausted, he sat at his kitchen table and stared at the dark hallway. He whispered to himself, "I'm not crazy." That was when he heard it, a whisper right behind him, so close he felt the breath against his neck. He tasted like pennies. Daniel jolted up, heart slamming, chair toppling behind him. But no one was there. Just the cold air and the rhythmic hum of the refrigerator. He knew he needed help. Desperate, he reached out to a retired detective who had worked the Dahmer case decades ago. When Daniel explained about the box and the tape, the detective went quiet on the phone. "Listen carefully," the old man said. "Apartment 213 was destroyed. Everything inside was destroyed. If you have something from that room, it didn't come from any evidence room." Daniel asked who had sent it. The detective only said, "Not who, what. Some places they remember what happened inside them, even after the walls are gone." That was the moment Daniel realized the truth. The box wasn't an artifact. It was a remnant, a piece of a place soaked in evil so deeply it still clung to anything that touched it. And now it clung to him. That night, Daniel packed a bag. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he couldn't stay in that apartment, not with what he kept hearing through the walls. But when he went to the kitchen to grab his keys, he stopped dead. Someone or something had laid the missing knife on the counter, clean, perfectly centered. And next to it sat the cassette. It was playing, even though there was no cassette player in the room. The tape whispered through the air, bending reality around it. He tasted like pennies. "You will too." Daniel backed away slowly, but the lights flickered and shut off. The apartment went silent, darker than it had ever been. Then footsteps, slow, heavy, coming from the hallway leading to his bedroom. Daniel ran for the door, yanked it open. But the hallway outside his apartment wasn't his apartment building anymore. It was narrow, yellowed, old, an exact replica of the hallway from the photographs inside the box. The hallway of the building that no longer existed. Apartment 213 was 3 doors down. Daniel couldn't move, couldn't breathe. His mind screamed that none of this was real, that he was dreaming. But then, the door to 213 creaked open. A silhouette stood inside. Not a man, not fully, just an outline, gaunt, swaying, as if shifting between shapes. And from the darkness came the familiar words, spoken in a voice that didn't belong to anything living. "A taste is a memory, and memories always come back." The thing stepped forward. Daniel slammed the door and ran back into his apartment. But the layout had changed. His kitchen was gone, his living room warped. Every exit led back to the same hallway, the same door, the same room. He wasn't escaping it. He was being drawn in. Neighbors reported hearing screams that night, though when police arrived, Daniel's apartment was empty. Lights on, door unlocked, food out on the counter, everything normal, except for the refrigerator. Inside, detectives found a single cassette tape labeled "Recovered." No one ever found Daniel Price. Some say he fled the state. Others believe he simply vanished. But every so often, long after midnight, someone in his old building reports hearing chewing sounds coming from through the vents, even though the apartment has been empty for years. And if you ask them what it sounds like, they always say the same thing, like someone tasting pennies.